Interesting difference since they've both been similar on how many ganks they've gotten off. Oh, and Syndra is under tower with the level 6, but she gets stunned out of the ult, and Viego gets the first blood, and Tahm Kench gets the solo kill in top on Gwen.
Big damage. That helps swing the gold lead, but there's fighting everywhere.
Tahm Kench going in, gets the ult off on Gwen, pulls her back.
That damage.
Yeah, that was pretty gross. Gwen's trying to kite slow from the ult, but Tahm is running her down. Oh, and there's the new W.
Ooh. They're gonna get the dragon.
Both Gwen and Tahm have the teleport up, and Batman slingshotting in. He is on his own for the most part, but he gets the Viego. They're running down the bot lane. Batman gets the double kill.
Straight to the dragon pit. Tahm Kench's gonna walk that way over. Gurgara needs to be able to look for a teleport because I don't think TFF are gonna give this one up easily.
Morgana is in totally on her own first. Blows the ult, blows the stopwatch. Ashe is off to the side, gets jumped on. Corki's there. It is very split up, this team fight.
Oh, Diablo!
Syndra at the double.
Wait, is it a penta?
There are Viego resets happening.
Penta? Did he get it?
Wow, that was a Viego
Diablo!
penta.
It was Syndra that was stolen that you saw there coming over the wall. Diablo smurfs the team fight, comes up with a huge pentakill.
But he really doesn't have anything, and they just both get out. They get the flash and the first blood.
Really smart play by Zach. So Zach done exactly what I said Jarvan should do. Is Zach setting up for a bot gank here? He's charging up, he's charging up.
He's going in onto the Zyra. Looks like to pull back into the root, and Zyra's actually going to be taken down here by the bot lane, and it looks like this early game is not going anywhere in the favor. The bot lane should be doing ahead, and mid lane should be having pressure with the Ahri, but instead, Zach has changed both these lanes.
We talked about how they were just going to really play paths here from the cow, but they've just gone complete against everything was said, making us look like two idiots have no idea what's going on. The combo of Zach and that Jinda was like, as I was talking, Gwen
the hard goes down. The Gwen.
So this was a really smart play by Meme City Metros, just do a bit of a cross map play. Seeing Zach's topside couldn't be contested.
Jarvan might be in a little trouble. He has to flash up here. The root's gonna land. Everything's actually gonna flash exhaust. Fourth shot coming in. You can't fly away from that. And you talked about how I talked about how the Corki and the Zac kind of scale here as well. But you know, Meme City has some scaling too. This Gwen is gonna be strong. Zac gonna leap in. Looks like Tom Mir takes the Ashe arrow, but actually gonna flash out and Jarvan comes in, and actually there's no 30 kills yet. Zac's gonna flash out. He still has his passive. They're looking to pop it here. Zac ult goes down. The passive boblets are on the ground. We're gonna see if Meme City can clean this up. Is he gonna form? Nope. Seven devils. Is actually gonna get the kill here, but Corki's roaming down, and so is Ahri.
He fails to jump. Corki fails to jump. Oh no,
Corki
that's heartbreaking.
misses the wall.
That's heartbreaking there by Yasuo Tesla. That's heartbreaking. That was a triple kill line.
Looks like an all-in coming here in top lane. The Ignite's gonna go out. Wukong, I don't think you win this. That's the Ignite. That's the TP Ignite. You can't actually all-in these TP Ignite laners. They have too much damage with the Ignite. And especially somebody who's already ahead like Gwen.
But the way it's been going by Gwen, I expect
There's
that to turn into a book. I expect the autograph book to come out later on.
Autograph book. That's great. The Death Note, if you will. And here comes Corki with the package onto bot lane here. Encore gonna hit. He's gonna hit onto the Ashe, and that's gonna actually shut down. Here comes the Jarvan onto Tom Meyer, and Corki's actually gonna go down here to the Ahri, and Jarvan picks up the Jhin, so that's not an even trade at all.
And it looks like it is a 2-for-1 in favor of Meme City. That was a really good Corki package to sort of split off the bot lane from their tower, but the Jarvan just coming in like we were talking about earlier with that early game aggression. He is still in his prime as a champion. Give him 10 more minutes, he is essentially now a minion, but right now he's still in his power strong. So essentially what he's done is just bought his team a bit more time, because with only a minute and a half remaining for Tower Plate's fall, Meme City are going to have to
actually coming in here onto the Ashe, gonna give the pull with the Zyra, and Zac is going up the Zyra, but the Seraphine went down to the Zyra plant. And now Jarvis he's dying for this kill. He's getting the gen, but Corki picks up 2. And now Ari's here. Doesn't dodge the charm, but Zach's here with the help. Will it be enough? And Ari barely enough damage. And she actually gets away from the Zach. This is a fist fight in bot lane.
What's going on? What a charm there as well, just to get onto the Corki on the actual rim of the head.
Ari may have made a mistake here. Getting forced in. Oh, the jet trap! She's gonna have to burn the ult.
Uses it while she gets away. It looks like she's gonna get away. Much threat potential here from Meme City. I have no idea.
Gwyn puts up the hollow missile. We're actually gonna fight around Dragon here. Jarvan swagging in, Cataclysm coming out, but he insta dies. Ari Charm's going down onto the Zac while he's bouncing around in the puddle. And he's actually, the Corki's gonna go down. And Zyra just gets picked up by Jin here. And here's Gwyn securing the Dragon for a team. And it's just a fist fight here in River. Dignitas gonna come down onto the Zac. Snip coming through. Zac's gonna die. We get Wukong's gonna spin around on this Gwyn. But it doesn't look like enough damage. He's gonna have to pull back, and here's Jin just standing here. He gets hit by the Archon. The Encore coming down onto Gwyn, snipping everybody away. Wukong's gonna try to pick up this kill back to the Gwyn, but she's healing so much.
What is that healing?
Too. Gwyn now 5-0.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call a champion by League of Legends. Of the Wukong does actually do, in theory, relatively well into Wukong,
Looks
but
like that and Wukong is jumping onto the Gwyn here, lining up for this needles though, and she looks like she's taking no damage, and Wukong just dies, and Zac's going too, and this Gwyn now she is 7-0.
it's a double solo bolo.
Working going in on the Ash, Arrow's gonna come out and chance Chris Arrow, and they trade kills with Guild Force. Hot lane fight going in, Ari Charm's gonna land, Seraph's gonna be taken down, now they're onto the Jin. The Jin's trying to trade a kill onto the Zyra. But can Jin get out here? Now he's kind of cornered himself against this tower, and now they're just dancing. But surely Ari has to. Oh! Ari just whiffs the charge completely, and now this might be in Jin's favor. He has the heal coming through. The 4th shot, not going to get it, but he is going to escape with his life.
It's full crash coming from this mid lane.
City is just running it straight down mid with this Herald. And him gonna be forfeit. And bot lane, they need to get back to base. Corki actually goes in here without the bot lane, but it looks like he just gets the insta kill onto the Zyra. Zach's getting cutting out here for the Ashe, but the Ashe looks like she's gonna go down. Sunfire Agent's taking her down. And here's Jarvan gonna have to flash away, but Slingshot comes in, and Jarvan cataclysms to stop the Wukong and actually gets out. The Wukong, as they're just shredding this Baron, and it looks like there won't be any response. They'll just get it for free. Insomnia is just gonna try to farm these waves, but you gotta think that with Gwyn being this strong and Game City being this strong, Baron might just be the end of this game.
It's not looking really good for Insomnia here. As
Wukong just goes down. Spoon Baboon gonna pick him up with the 3 dashes and not even the flash expense. But there's no way they could defend this. Yep, and there goes to Ari. And excuse me for talking about Ari damage. I guess if you're 6 kills ahead and it's enemy support, it doesn't matter what ability you hit them with, they're gonna blow up.
absolutely unreal damage coming from the solo laners of Meme City. Really giving a good shot.
Jarvan coming in with the Cataclysm. Corki can't get out, Stranglethorn's coming through, but it's not enough damage in. Looks like Jarvan just ran it. Curtain Call gonna come out, but not really connecting. Not putting a lot of damage out here. They're trying to defend this last inhib. This last inhib, the minions are gonna take it down, and Gwyn's just gonna take down Jin here, just with ease. Snip, snip. Gonna miss the needlework encore coming through onto the Gwyn, but Long Gwyn is immune. And Wukong's gonna go down to the Zyra.
What a champion, what a
and
champion.
here's the Gwyn knocking at your doors with this Zyra. Snip, snip your towers.
Finishing 10-0.
Oh.
What a performance by the Gwen. What a
11-0.
performance. 11-0.
That's a perfect game, and that's a perfect champion. Thank you, Riot Games.
What a way to show
Head high, chin up, scissors ready.
I mean, we got Corki's back. on the Enemy T, like on Insomnia. Those are champions that are going to scale up and be monsters late, but not too big early. Or maybe they are. Boon, boon, boon. Gonna get flashed on by the Zac here. It looks like he's gonna be taken down. First blood going over to the Corki. Jarvan's trying to answer, but he really doesn't have it.
Hello, welcome to the newly redefined podcast with the name Titan Talk. My name is Khyroe, and my co-host, many of you already know through the awesome shoutcasting that he's been doing, Jango.
Hello, everybody.
And for those that do not know either one of us, I'm the director of the content creation team here at Titan Esports, and Jango is the media director that's in charge of all that fantastic shoutcasting that you heard in the hype video. So, how are you today, Jango?
I had a pretty long work day, not gonna lie, but I'm home. I'm relaxing. One more day till the weekend, but I've got tonight's podcast to look forward to, so that's gonna hold me over till I get there.
I know. I'm excited. I'm excited to get this starting, and we're actually on time comparative from the last time. So we're already off to a better start than what we were before.
There we go.
Now, for those of you, you're more than welcome. If there's anything that we're talking about and there's any good questions from the chat, I'll happily pull those and then we'll discuss them as we go through. So I don't know. This is obviously going to be on YouTube as well as Twitch. So if you're not a follower on Twitch, give us a follow and hit that subscribe button and that bell on YouTube to help us with the algorithm to get this out more, because the more we get this out, the more people we can draw in, the bigger prize pool for you all.
Yep,
So
it's gonna be a good time.
I thought that since this is a new host, a renew, I guess what you would call it, not a re-evolution, but a redesigned podcast, I thought we'd give a little bit of information about, us with the co-hosts and stuff. So, Jango, obviously you play League of Legends because you wouldn't be here if you didn't. Or at least you attempt to play League of Legends. I've never seen you play, so I can't tell.
Yeah. I've played League for quite a bit. I started back in season 2. I started playing. I didn't play a ton back in the day. I didn't even get my account to level 30 until season 3. And watching Worlds around season 3 is when I really started playing the game. I've peaked into Diamond. I got into the kind of amateur scene about 4 years ago, roughly. Actually, your resident gold jungler Batman is the only reason I'm sitting here with you today. I answered a call for him when he needed a substitute AD carry. I ended up playing on a team with him for quite some time. We won some, we lost more than we won, but happens that way most of the time. So I played a bit. I did a bit of management. I did a bit of casting. I did kind of a little bit of everything in the amateur scene, and it's a long story, so I'll spare you the details for tonight, but I'm very happy to be with Titan now where I am. It's a really cool experience, and honestly, the people here in the staff are probably the biggest reason that I'm here in Titan.
Well, we're glad to have you. That's a definite, because when I found out that I was going to be over at the podcast and I was looking for a co-host, I mean, you were, at the top of the list. So I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that you're on here with us. As far as me, I'm a boomer when it comes to League of Legends. I started in before season 1 when you had to pay for the game to get it originally. For those that remember the box art, I'll meet you in the Social Security line on Monday. But I've played throughout League of Legends. I was there before the jungle meta was there. When you actually had a jungler, so you had 2 top, 1 mid, 2 bottom. And my favorite champion when he came out was Jin Zhao. So that's what I mained. My favorite position is probably AD carry, but I'm probably better at support. So that's where I kind of get relegated because when your best is bronze 4, you're not really. They stick you on what you can do the best at. But I've been around here. I'm one of the founding members of Titan Esports, and so I've been around. I've been in a couple of different positions in the organization. I'm happy where I'm at right now, obviously, and so we started this. Actually, this whole Titan Esports is because we actually started in a different league, the Risen League, and so we actually once we got the bug to play competitive League of Legends, solo queue is never the same. And so that's how we got to where we are right now, in a nutshell. So as as it says, we've painfully dug the trenches and got to where we are today through hard work, prayer, and probably a lot of 4-letter words that we're not allowed to say on Twitch. So now, for those who don't know, we're going to go into this podcast. I explained it on the first episode, which is the technical learning how to use the website podcast. But this is going to be a bi-weekly podcast. So that means that we're going to have, every 2 weeks we'll have a show, and we're going to divide it up with, starting next week. It'll be like Titan Esports will be one whole week, one whole episode. Then we'll do LCS and some other fun variety stuff regarding League of Legends and stuff that I think you guys will like. So, and if there's like I said, if there's any questions, make sure to post them in Twitch chat, and we will be happy to actually get them. People's talking apparently about World of Warcraft and a League of Legends podcast. It's already starting. So this week so to give you an idea, guys, we're going to actually start because there's so much to catch up into in the world of LCS and League of Legends Pro scene, and there's not as much in the actual starting of the season. We're going to combine them this week so that we actually have a full-length show for you all, so that's not like a 30-minute show and then the next thing. So that way we could fill out an entire show. So, Jango, who's your favorite team in LCS?
Who's my favorite team in the LCS? I have a lot of gripes with the LCS, but it is an enjoyable region to watch. I've watched most of the games this split and most of the games in the spring split too, actually. So I've watched a lot of North American League of Legends. My favorite team right now would probably be watching Cloud9, just because I think individually Fudge and Vulcan have been some of the best in their role. And that's saying a lot when I think the top end of top laners and supports in NA is actually pretty decent, with the likes of CoreJJ and Alfari and Ignore, and you have Someday and Impact, who are all performing really well. I think Fudge and Vulcan could arguably stand on top of those, so it's really nice to see them. I am a long-time European watcher as well, so seeing perks in North America is just really fun. So I'd have to say Cloud9's more my favorite team to watch, but I don't really root or back any North American teams currently.
Well, I know that I'm a Cloud9 fan, but the team that's probably impressed me the most this season has actually been 100 Thieves. So they're a close second because, one, I'm a fan of Papa Smithy, which is I think the acting GM of 100 Thieves right now. and the way that and they hired my favorite coach of all time, which is Reaper, and they've got so many different stories within the 100 Thieves that I really enjoy. You've got who used to be a CLG mid laner back in the day, went to support, and he's actually been just smurfing on people. I mean, you've got FBI. You've got, is it Abadagi, I think, is on 100 Thieves? Yeah, Abadagi is on 100
Yes.
Thieves. They've made some really good moves. They've done some really creative stuff, such as, who he playing Zig support and then going like what is it, the fasting Senna.
Yes.
And so like that kind of stuff excites me. I like seeing stuff that you don't normally see and very creative things to the that fits so well, like and the best part is that because it's 100 Thieves, you have that wouldn't work on like Cloud9, for example. Like I'm sure Vulcan is a high level player, but he's not as good as like an old mid laner who played Ziggs back in the day, for example.
I really like who he as just more often than not just setting an example for other players to be able to rule swap to more cerebral rules like jungle and support, because while a lot of people like meme it in a sense, and it's definitely not for everybody, I think certain players can make massive turnarounds. A little bit off topic of LCS, but there is an older AD carry by the name of Steelback who's currently playing support in the ERLs, and he is absolutely phenomenal at it. And I think there are other chances for different players to make rule swaps into the jungle, into support, and elongate their careers that way. So seeing a player be successful with it and 100 Thieves kind of stick with them and him rise to the top, and he's had a little bit of a lull this split. I would say he's probably behind both Core JJ and Vulcan this split, but he's still up there, top probably 4 undeniable, I would say, just off the top of my head. But I think the big thing for 100 Thieves this season has got to be Abadage for me, because that man came over, and it's been a long time because Summer Split got a few more games in it this time round. But at the beginning of summer, all I can remember back then is Abadage absolutely smurfing on every single mid lane in our league. Perks, PoE, Jensen, it did not matter. He was slaughtering mid laners early. I hope we get kind of that form for him and maybe a bit better form for 100 Thieves overall in playoffs, because I think a lot of people are kind of underrating them due to their last just couple rough weeks they've had. And if they can make a turnaround for playoffs, they have the second spot, so they've got some time to practice and get back into shape. It will be a very competitive playoffs if they can actually show up and have a really good game against what we expect to be evil geniuses. I don't think too many people are backing Dig in that matchup.
No, I don't think they are either. To credit Zerobi, I believe Ignar is obviously not a top 3 support, but he plays a lot more different stuff, which as a fan watching LCS, it's exciting to see someone play Blitzcrank, for example, because it's something that's different than playing the same old cookie cutter meta slave stuff all the time. That's why I like Ignar. I mean, I agree. Ignar is literally feast or famine. And
Ignar's, oh man, Ignar's really interesting to me because I have been for a very long time kind of an Ignar hater and not really giving him credit he deserves. I think he has been steadily getting better. I think he's still a bit overrated right now in terms of like community perception, but I also don't think he's just like really bad. Because right now he's laning with Danny, and while Danny has some fantastical strengths to him, and I'm sure that's a player we'll talk about a lot here in the coming times, Danny's lane phase is really weak, and Ignar makes up for it a lot of the time, and he's actually made like a conscious shift in his playstyle to not roam as much this season, which I think is kind of like diminished his highlights, but he's protecting Danny in that way, so I think he's maturing, maybe is the word, as a support, but not losing the killer instinct too much. So I'd like to throw Ignar a bone. I think he could compete for top half support. I don't think he's top 3. 4 is kind of arguable, but I would definitely put him top 5.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, considering that Ignar wasn't what was it, like a 4 million buyout for like Sword Art, for example. I mean, they got Ignar at a pretty good price. So
We're not talking about Sword Art here, unless you really want to get into it. Oh boy.
no, 100 Thieves is a team that gives a little bit of shoots a little energy into the LCS. I mean, they have players like going back to Huhi. When Huhi was literally playing mid lane wherever he was at, he would literally play. They would ban Aurelion Sol because no one played against it, and that was like his favorite champion. And with Reaper there being as creative as he is, and you don't have a player. It doesn't matter how good they are. Reaper demands respect, and he gets that respect from almost anybody within the league because he's had so much success at Cloud9 and when he was over in Korea. So I'm really excited to see, and I'm hoping that some of these teams, like Evil Geniuses that you brought up, Evil Geniuses is another team that brings a lot of energy. But but their problem is they're a coin flip team because Jizuke is kind of like Ignar. He's either feast or famine. He's either popping off or he's just running it down mid.
I think Jizuke's had less coin flip plays this season. He's definitely not the most consistent member on EG, but I think he's kind of taking on a sort of perk-esque style where he will int, but he's like communicating that he's inting, and his team is aware and cross-mapping and playing a lot more around him, so his ints don't go as badly. Because Jizuka is definitely the type of player that will just play the way that he thinks is best, regardless of what his team is doing around it. So he kind of requires his team to play around him, and I think the current EG lineup definitely fits that. And I think it's really weird that kind of the jungle is where I'm really cautious to praise EG for, because they've almost felt invisible with how good their solo laners have been, whether it's been Contracts or Svenskeren in the jungle for them.
Which, if you look here I'm looking at their lineup, Svenskeren, Impact, Contracts. I mean, half of their team is legitimately Cloud9 alumnists. And I think that kind of pairs too. Like Impact has had a chip on his shoulder for the entire season. Like he came out like popping off on the Renekton, and he's one of the few people who plays Singe, and he does it well. He's also known as a one-trick pony for Shin, but. But the only thing that I have to say about EG is that while their solo laners have been really good, like you've said, between Jizuke and Impact, I'm really worried about Svenskeren. When Svenskeren was when he first played on EG and when he was on Cloud9, he was actually exciting and fun to watch. But now it seems like he's went back to old TSM Svenskeren, invisible, just kind of a ward in the jungle, so to speak.
I think that's really weird for Svenskeren. He's definitely a player that's had really high highs and really low lows in his career, in my opinion, and it feels like he's kind of in another trough or valley, if you will speak that way. And it's just really weird to see him like that, because I feel like in an environment where he's got this kind of rookie understudy that should be pushing him to play better, should be pushing him to keep his spot, should be pushing him to play solo queue and keep at the top of his game, it really feels like he's slipping. And I'm very curious come to see playoffs and if they make Worlds, which is pretty likely given that they only have to win one best of 5 to do so, if Contracts will become more of a mainstay on the team, or if they're going to commit to Svenskeren, because I'd really like for them to commit to one person. That way they can get more practice in as a 5-man unit, because that's kind of a story throughout the entire LCS, is teams not having a lot of time with their starting rosters, and that hurting some teams, and it's actually benefited a few of the other ones, notably FlyQuest, although the benefit came unfortunately too late for them in the season, as they did finish 9th. So maybe it didn't benefit them, actually.
I'm kind of excited. Like, I've always, for the longest time, I always wondered, like, if you look looking forward to Worlds and you look at what people bring, they always bring an extra jungler. Very rarely do you see them bring a extra support, mid laner, or whatever. And I think that with what they have between Svenskeren and contracts, they have the makings to cover a lot of any meta shifts. So between the world's meta and playoffs as they are getting ready to start, if I would put Svenskeren on Lee Sin when it's meta over contracts, but if all of a sudden Kindred is super powerful, I'd put contracts on Kindred. I mean, you have enough play there, and enough, with contracts being, experienced, as an LCS player, you don't have the rookie nerves. So I think that they have the ability to probably want to be the more flexible teams going into the playoffs.
Flexible. Probably one of the more flexible teams, yeah. I would say Team Liquid, TSM, they're both pretty set in their ways. Golden Guardians pretty much just has a single way they play. It feels like Cloud9, 100 Thieves, and EG are these teams that, for more or less, play multiple styles and do it at least well. And it feels like Team Liquid, TSM, Golden Guardians, to me, kind of just stick to how they play. And while that's different play styles for all three of them, they very much stick to a single way of just playing the game. Dom wants me to talk about Akshan, but I'm pretty sure they don't allow us to talk about shit on Twitch, so sorry.
Oh.
Unlucky. He needs a lot more time. He needs a lot more time for people to learn him, is my actual take. I think he's way more skill intensive than people are giving him credit for, and I think he has a lot of power in his utility, which means his base stats are just going to be kind of crappy, and people need to learn how to play him. I think until people learn what the champion actually does and its correct playstyle and its correct limitations, he is going to look like a garbage can for a long time. And personally, I'm glad he's not going to be allowed at Worlds. I believe I heard that. I could be wrong, but I believe I heard
I've
that.
heard that's still up in the air. As far as Akshan goes, I really like what they're trying to do with him. The problem is that he reminds me of, do you remember how when Aphelios came out and he had all this weird kit, and he I think he dropped to like a low 40% win rate because no one knew how to work with him, and then all of a sudden he became like giga powerful because they buffed him to try to help, and then when people learned him, it just sent him over the top.
Yep. I think it could be similar.
I think it can be like that. I mean, just the ability to res somebody in combat, that changes strategies dramatically. Drafting strategies, front to your front to back, how you're going to team fight. I mean, that adds another layer of complexity to the game that there's going to be hard to account for until you actually get a lot of rep in it. But go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one thing really quickly. If you are actually interested in listening to people who have more information than I do talk about Akshan, I believe Euphoria, the podcast, did one with like a game design balancer who worked on Akshan itself, and he had a lot of really cool things to talk about. So check out the Euphoria podcast if you want to like listen to more in-depth talk about Akshan, because they 100% know more than I do.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Absolutely not.
We did forget about one team. We kind of briefly mentioned one of their players, and they're actually the top team, which surprised the living daylights out of me, which was TSM. And so I'm really impressed with TSM, considering Spica had to literally bounce back the way he did from the first part of the season. And then Huni, I mean, you never know what you get with Huni, and Huni has actually been pretty solid this season.
I think it's a crazy world we live in, where, in my opinion, Huni is the second best player on this team. which is a little weird to me, but whatever works for them. I think Power of Evil has just had a really rough early half where it was just Viego Lee Sin, and Viego was strong enough that he was able to just perform on it without really being able to play it well. And I think he lost both Lee Sin games that he played, if I remember correctly. And he's just been trying to brute force mages ever since. They got that nice Lost Chapter buff, and he's been doing better since then. But he feels as stuck in his own little meta as ever, which can be a good thing if the right meta rolls around, and could be a really bad thing if the wrong one does. Spica has been absolutely outstanding. Most people are talking about this guy as not rookie of the split MVP material. It's really hard to disagree with a lot of the arguments that are coming out. I think Huni's been solid, and this is coming from someone who generally doesn't like Huni and thinks that he's kind of overinflated. You could make an argument for a top 3 top laner out of Huni, and a lot of people would, I think, with Alfari not playing an entire season and someday not looking absolutely fantastic. I think a lot of people would argue that Fudge, Impact, and Huni make up the top 3, which is 100% an argument you could have. And if you noticed anything about what I've been talking about, it's not the bot lane of TSM, because I don't have nicer things to say about them. Take it away.
As far as Huni goes, like me and Jango were talking earlier about what, and I heard it on the dive, the recent episode of the dive when they were cross-dressing. Anyway, there's a thing called standard deviance. So that means that let's say that Fudge plays at an average of a 70 on a scale of 1 to 100. And he goes up to like 80 and then goes down to 60 is usually the scale that he plays on. You know, usually at his worst he's at a 60 and at his best he's at an 80. Huni is more like 45 to 85. And he, like, if Huni, like I told him, if they could control Huni, I thought that TSM would have a good chance at playing through top lane and jungle. And with Huni, you know, he's had a resurgence. I agree with you that he's probably top 3 right now. I mean, it doesn't help that the MVP is his jungler. As far as Lost goes, I feel really sad for Lost because he had to come in and fill double lift shoes. And, you know, he probably couldn't fill one flip flop of double lifts.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think he's bad. I just don't think he's great.
I think he's bad. And it's really hard, right? Because, like, I think he's bad in terms of AD carry. As far as AD carry in North America goes, it's not that hard to be not bad. And especially when you go and look at, like, bot lanes as a duo, it's pretty rough across the board. You've got Sven Vulcan, and Sven has not been performing. You've got Danny Ignar, and Danny has a really weak lane phase. Tactical Core JJ is something that people always talk about, but I don't think Tactical's been... This is hot take. We can get to this later. I don't think Tactical's been having a great split. A lot of people disagree with me on that. I mean, who else do you have? FBI Huhi might be just the best 2v2 bot lane. Them or Core JJ Tactical, right? So it's like, what is Lost supposed to, like, stack up against? He doesn't have a lot of competition. I think that makes him look better than he is. But as far as, like, AD carries in any other region is rough.
Well, I mean, I definitely can see that. And Sword Art has probably been the biggest oof in recent memory. Like, I think that you could have paid a 10th of what you paid him and got someone and got the same results.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the language barrier, if it's just, you know, the old meme that, you know, when a Korean player goes to die, they come DNA. So, you know.
Well, he's Taiwan, but Taiwanese. Close enough.
any non-English speaking, any Eastern player. But let's go ahead and move on to the 4th place team, which is Cloud9. Unless you have anything else to add.
No, I don't think Sword Art is by and far the worst support ever to play in North America. I just think he gets really hard memed on for his pay versus his play. And there's nothing really I can defend there, but I just want to throw out that I don't think he's dog tier. He's
I
just
agree.
not worth 6.5 million.
I agree with you. There's nothing, when you pay for something, like if you go to McDonald's and you go and get a McDouble from, you expect a certain amount of quality for what you pay for. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to, you don't go to McDonald's and expect like a steakhouse burger from your favorite steakhouse.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you're getting Sword Art is the McDouble at the swankiest steakhouse in town.
I think it's really funny that if TSM just went with their usual support spiel and was like, this is a support from a foreign country that we're bringing in to be a shot caller because he has tons of veteran experience and he was just at World's Finals, that would have actually been the most real thing they could say. But instead it's we're bringing over this awesome, highly mechanical Chinese prodigy support that was just in World's Finals and he's making $6.5 million. And I'm like, man, this guy doesn't have hands compared to the North American players we already have. And I have to imagine Sword Art has value, right? The guy has had such a long career. It's just really hard to see it on the Rift. I hope he has better value outside, intangibles and whatnot that we just can't see. But he's just, as long as he's being paid $6.5 million to not be able to press buttons correctly, he will be memed, and that's kind of unfortunate.
I've seen TSM play themselves out of mistakes that they have made. And I think that that's probably Sword Art coming in and saying, this is where we need to do what we need to do. But it doesn't help when your AD carry has lost his tower at 12 minutes.
We have a question in chat for All Pro Team. Do you want to finish talking about teams and then go on to All Pro? Because I figured we would talk about that, or do you want to do it now?
Let's go ahead and finish through all of the teams first and then give an All Pro. But we will do that, Dom.
All right.
So let's move on to probably the most chaotic and cluster effed team in North America, which is Cloud9. I'm speaking this as a Cloud9 fan. Blabber has probably been the biggest problem on the entire team. To be honest,
a toss up for Blabber and Sven for me.
Sven, I see what you're saying. I can agree with you. The reason I say that is because an AD carry can play subpar, and the team can get away with it. But where the jungle has the urgency to influence everywhere, then that affects everybody instead of just the bot lane.
Sure,
so,
agreeable.
So that's what bothers me the most about Blabber. I think he's a great player. I don't know. It's ever since MSI, it's he ate something over there and some kind of virus has entered his brain and now he can't get the buttons in the right order anymore.
I think Blabber was very, very used to just playing an extremely certain style and used to have pieces around him that fit that style, most notably Niski. And in case you have never watched both players play, Perks and Niski just don't play the same game of League of Legends. And I think Blabber, kind of like how I was talking about Jizuke earlier, is not going to change his play style just because he has different pieces around him, and so you have to build the team around him. And I don't think this Cloud9 roster is built around him, and he's struggling because of it. Now, if you want to say that's a GM problem or a Blabber problem, that's fine. That's just my observation of what's going on.
That's a symptom. What you're saying, I think that Cloud9's biggest problem, in my opinion, is the lack of coaching. Reaper left. I'm not sure exactly why Reaper left, and it was just sudden. So I don't know if it was some kind of conflict within the organization, but ever since then, Reignover held the team together and they got that championship. But but then all of a sudden Rainover's steps down, and then Smithy takes over,
Yes.
and the team is just not gelled. They don't look like the same Cloud9 team, with the exception of Fudge. I will say that Fudge has actually exceeded my expectations.
I'm throwing Vulcan into that ring too. Fudge and Vulcan.
Okay, I'll give you that, but I'm kind of got a bad taste in my mouth with Vulcan because of Sven.
I mean, yeah, he's been playing with Sven and King. Like, he doesn't have a lot of help, but I still think he's been outside of the lane that he's stuck in with these guys. I think he's been playing really well.
Yeah, I've seen it in like his team fighting is really good. Sven is, I don't know if he had attitude problems or what for the benching that happened. I respect Jack for the fact that they're willing to bench their players when they're not doing what they think that they should do. Now you can argue whether or not that was the correct choice, because whether they were doing the right thing or not. But I think that having discipline within an organization is so important. Like, you don't have to have someone breathing down your neck that if you flash fail 3 times this week, you're not playing. But you need to have some discipline that if you don't do the required things, then you don't get to play.
I think the background of Cloud9 has been really, really shrouded and really, really hard, and we're just looking at it with a lot of conjecture, but I can't reasonably understand what's going on behind the scenes when they have Mithy, Rainover, Vigar V2, Max Waldo, and they have Perks and Sven on the roster, which you think should be these leadership figures, and like they have the longest standing reputation and they have the longest standing careers, and they should be looked to leaders, and they should line up literally how they have talked before lines up with what we know of like Mithy's view of the game and Vigar V2's view of the game and Max's view of the game, and then they just don't play that way, and it's so unbelievably confusing to me. Like, what is actually happening with Cloud9? I obviously have no way of knowing, but it's a turmoil that I hope gets figured out, because they have one of the better rosters on paper and they have one of the best ceilings in North America. And while I have absolutely no hope for Worlds this year, Cloud9 is a team that could do something if they get their act together.
Which, if they do, they have been rising up slowly. So, maybe they're playing towards the meteoric rise to champions. That's a Cloud9 speaking beyond
Perks playoff
realistic.
buff.
Pretty much. But I think Vulcan has probably been the best support in the league.
Agreed.
I think Fudge is has probably been the top. Maybe you could argue Impact, but I think Fudge has been playing a lot better, and he's one of the rocks and foundations that has gotten them some of their wins.
I think we can have the talk between Fudge and Impact more when we go about All-Stars, because I think we will differ on that. Is there any... I don't think we hit Team Liquid specifically, if we wanted to jump over there.
Yeah, that's the next one. The Money team.
Oh my goodness, this team bothers me because they should be so much better than how they have been playing, and I am really bothered by that. Core JJ is just, man, in a world where he was just undisputed best for like 2 years in a row, he just feels invisible on this roster. You had your Alfari Jenkins problems, you had your Centaur and Armao problems. In my opinion, again, most people are going to disagree with me, I don't think Tactical is playing well at all. And Jensen looks like he could be a top 3 mid laner 1 week and then a bottom 3 mid laner the next. He's been very inconsistent this split.
I'm really disappointed in this team, because when Jat joined the team as a coach, I went, this is probably the best fit for them, because throughout Jat's history, he's been a very analytical person, and I figured that would be something that would actually help Team Liquid, and it seemed like it did in the first split that Jat was there. And then all of a sudden, it just falls apart. They bench Alifari. All of a sudden, Jat's no longer there. I mean, it's like, I don't know if they paid a lot of money for Alifari and they wanted the value, or is it an organization versus player, or I mean, coach issue versus versus player issue? But I mean, you can't really, if the organization is like literally blowing up around you, it's understandable why they're not playing good. Core JJ probably is, and Tactical are probably the parents waiting to see who's going to take custody of the parents after the divorce.
Are you comfortable right now, me asking you a hard question, putting you in a hot seat? If you no is an acceptable answer, but I have a question for you if you're comfortable with it.
Go ahead.
All right. So you said you liked Cloud9 having the ability over their players to bench their star players and whatnot. How do you feel about the entire, from what we understand, Jat benched Alfari, Jat got fired, Alfari's back in. How do you feel about that then?
Actually, if it's played out like that, okay, in that specific scenario, then I hate it. I mean,
so where did it go wrong then? What do you think? Like, because obviously a lot of people are going to say Alfari should have never been brought out, but I think you would have a different stance on this, and I want to hear it.
Through like listening to streamers and everything else, like this is like probably third party, fourth party information that I have. But from what I've heard is that Alifari came in and he smurfed during the invitational, during the invitational tournament.
Yeah, the
lock-in or whatever.
Yeah, that's the word. Yeah,
and but it seems like that he's very, very sure of himself, and he's not shown. There are glimpses of him, but like for an example, every game that Cloud9 played against him, he's been first blooded. So that to me shows that I'm going to play my way, and that teams are exploiting it, and that if the chat and them brought it up, to me, I think Alifari is probably the biggest problem that they've had all season.
That's an interesting take. So when you're talking about the first blood thing, I believe you were talking about the spring split finals where 4 out of the 5 games he was first blood. The 5th game it was in top lane against, I think, Blabber instead of against Armao instead of Alfari, but it happened in a top lane 2v2. And it is my opinion, looking over those games and whatnot, 3 out of 5 of those deaths, the jungler should have been there, given the lane state. One of them was debatable, and one of them he hinted. And that is my opinion on that, and they had a sub-jungler in, so that's kind of where I come down on. It's like, well, maybe Alfari's playing correctly, but just people aren't playing correctly around him, so it's one of those things that it's like, do you play worse because your team isn't backing you up, or do you play what's right and try and fix it like in a post-game review or something, right? That's kind of where you have to come down on that.
When I play competitive, or when I did play competitive, okay? And when I've heard professional level people say this. When you play in a lower elo or a lower skill match, you play different, because the right decision is the wrong decision if everyone else makes the wrong decision. If that makes sense. It's better to go along with what the team is doing than trying to force through, and then all of a sudden the teams are taking advantage of this.
Yeah. No, I agree with that premise. It's just one of those things where I don't have all of the information, right? Like if I, like, because we could say that and we could both agree with what you're saying, and then and this will never happen, but tomorrow they can release the entire voice comms for the entire thing, and Alfari like tells Armal like, "Hey, this wave I'm going to be crashed and dove," and Armal messes up his jungle pathing to get up there. Well, then whose fault is it? Like we don't know the whole story. I agree with the premise that you're saying, but like, if he communicated that it was the correct play,
you're right. In that sense, that's still the correct play, and if he did communicate it, the problem is that he made his mistake the moment that he knew that if Armao is not around him, and he continues up, he should just sack the wave, because it's better to do that than to sit there and get blooded, and then all of a sudden, especially with Fudge playing like Camille, for example, because Camille's such a snowbally champion. They can still snowball off of a CS and experience lead, but it's a slower snowball, and it's easier to correct compared to, oh, well, he's got 3 kills and my lane's over.
Yeah, I think we can go back and forth on this a lot, but we're deep in to the time point already, so we can move on from it.
All right. So the next team that's on our thing is Dignitas, which is probably
we're gonna talk about the bottom 3. I was hoping we would just ignore them.
Well, they're actually 6th place. So
yeah, bottom 3, 8th, 7th, 6th.
Yeah, well, math isn't my strong point. This team I've always liked for no other reason than they're an all North American team. And, one of the things that has been creeping up, and at the risk of getting on another tangent, developing talent in North America is the most important thing that the LCS should do. But now they're getting rid of their amateur teams or their academy teams now. That's really rubbed me the wrong way. But anyway, the fact that this is a team that is got Fake God, Yusui, Neo, Aframu, and Acadian on there, and they're actually 6th place, and they probably have some of the lowest salary, as far as salary caps go.
Mm-hmm. This
is a team that I really I like for that. They're not my favorite team by no means. I've always liked Afro Mu. Neo has really impressed me. Dardoch is a whole nother thing, because Dardoch is, I've always been told, is like the jungle version of Solo, super toxic. But
yeah, I mean, Dardoch's a whole can of worms on his own, but Dignitas is something that I feel like I think the Dignitas magic is over. I feel like after this season, we're probably going to see the roster blow up. Maybe 1 or 2 people stay on it. And it's one of those things where like they were better than the sum of their parts for so long, and then kind of something happened internally. Dardoch blew up, Acadian came in, whatever you want to say, but it's I feel like the magic's gone. Saligo went down, Yasui came up, and now it's just they're just trying to pull up as they're playing nosedives into atmosphere. And I expect them to get 3-0'd by AG, and then I expect half the team to probably not return on the Dignitas banner next season, which is sad to say, because I think some of the players have a little bit of worth. I hope Neo just stays in LCS. I can't discredit the fact that Afromu's like playing decently. It's impressive. I'll just leave it at that. It's impressive that he's still playing at the level he's at after how many years of playing.
Like Afromu, Neo, and it's either a toss. If you were going to keep 3, okay, I would keep Aframu, Neo, and either Fake God or Acadian, whichever one. If you can get something on the market, then keep the other. I like Acadian. I've always liked Acadian. He gets the DeMonte treatment
You
that
are
I think that
alive.
he's a lot better, and everyone uses him and then
Hello,
drops him when they
hello.
no
Welcome
longer
to the
need him.
first podcast of the Titan Esports Summer Split.
But
So,
I'm hoping that this season, the
we're here to
team, I
discuss some
forget who
stuff that's
owns
going on
Dignitas
later,
now,
and we're
but,
trying to give everyone kind of a heads
I
up.
don't
There's
know.
been a lot of complete redesign
I
from the
would
ground
like
up
to
from the
see
Discord
them
to the
get like a
website
mid
to even the
laner,
rules and even some
like
of the
a good
stat
mid
that's
laner,
changed.
and
so
either a good
this is what
jungler
this podcast
or
is
a
going
good
to be
top laner.
about today.
Fake God has shown signs of, like he's done really good. If you had to force me to pick, I'd probably pick Fake God over Acadian. Because Fake God, I think, can lose gracefully. And if you can find a high tempo jungler and a stable mid laner, I think that you have a good chance of even going higher than what they did already.
It's possible. I think you need to blow the roster to do it, though. So we'll see how many people stick around. I'm hoping for Neo. Maybe the Neo Afro bot lane is what sticks around. Maybe it's not, but we're just gonna have to wait till next season and see. What the heck are even the 7th and 8th place teams? Immortals
Mortals.
and okay, Golden Guardians are kind of cool. I don't like Immortals.
I'm not.
Sorry, Immortals.
I like Raze and Xerxes and Destiny. Insanity, I just feel bad that he's just not the caliber, and neither is Revenge, in my opinion. But I mean, besides that, I mean, like you said, there's nothing spectacular about Immortals that I would be speaking about. That's probably another team that's probably going to get blown up.
Yeah, I could see it. I don't know. I don't know what a lot of these lower rosters that didn't do as well as they wanted to are going to do with their teams, whether they actually double down on their younger players or if they just blow up the roster again and roll all 5 dice and see if they hit Yahtzee. That's somewhat what it feels like.
I do too. I will speak on Golden Guardians. I think Stixay is trash. He used to be good, and I don't know. I feel like he's literally like that celebrity that shows up drunk and then ruins everything. And but he still comes around because he used to be good and popular. That's what I feel about Stixay. Chime showed some good stuff. Licorice was pretty good. I think that team, they've got a foundation to build between Chime and Licorice, and then go from there.
I hope a Blaze Olive keeps on his current trajectory personally. I think he's been on the up and up. And if he keeps that up, that will probably mean he'll be in North America for a while. Licorice will obviously stick around. He's a good enough player to do so. He's a top 10 top laner easily, so he should stay in LCS. Chime, I don't know if Golden Guardians get rid of him, who will take a chance on him, but I think at least an amateur team will, so hopefully he will stick around somewhat. I could be done with Stixay as well, and I hope Iconic does not just get thrown to the wind and just like this is the team with Iconic and Rosethorn on it. And I think given time, at least one of them could develop, and I'm really gonna be unhappy if Golden Guardians like 2022 is like Iconic out Acadian in or something like that. That'll feel really bad.
The thing that bothers me about them is that when I look at these players, I don't see any kind of ceiling. I see their ceiling as where they're at now. All right, so I don't, except for the couple that I mentioned before, I just don't see them unless the meta just shifts dramatically and all of a sudden they're just like god tier in that meta. But
I
let's
think
go
we've been on LCS long enough. I know. If you just want to hit All Pro here before we leave it, though.
All right, yeah, we'll
or
just leave
anything
it.
else you wanted to do?
I was just going to mention the honorable mentions of the people I liked, like Jose Dioto, Johnson on
Jose
on
Dioto, big
FlyQuest,
time.
and CLG is Finn.
They're all really nice guys. Actually, Demonte. I like Demonte.
Yeah, and Demonte. But if I go ahead, let's see. Go ahead and give me your all team, your top 5.
My All Pro team.
Yep.
Oh boy, here we Can go. All right. Impact, Spica, Abadage, FBI, Vulcan.
See, I'd say the same thing, but I would put Fudge instead of. But
No, it's.
but
Dom, I have to say, I think Speak is going to win MVP. I don't agree he should win MVP. I think he's the best jungler, but I don't think he should win MVP. So you're going to be not so happy when that gets announced. But I just I don't think it's been a good year for junglers at all. I think behind Spica is probably closer. Maybe you can make an argument for 1-2 there. But I think what Spica does, Spica has so much crap around him in like a void hole mid lane and a I don't even know what bot lane is. Mid lane's a void, and he still manages to get jungle leads most games and get his and translate it into his lanes. So I think that's the biggest reason. I think it feels like Spica has less to work with in terms of lanes, and does equal or more than other junglers, which is why I think that's why the community sentiment is so high on him.
All right, well, I guess we'll leave the LCS net for now.
Wait, one
Then-
question
What?
quick, because
What?
we both, I had Impact, you have Fudge. If Alphari played the whole split, would you theorize that you have him as your top laner, or do you think Fudge has still been better than what you've seen out of Alphari?
If you want my honest opinion, I would have Fudge still just because Alifari has weaknesses that he refuses to address.
Okay.
And that's my biggest concern with Alifari. Like Fudge got better after the lock-ins and addressed his weaknesses. So I'd rather have him in a best of 5 over Alifari any day.
All right, I like the answer. Fudge was a beast at MSI. I can't like discredit what this guy is doing. He's really insane for his first year in the pro
Yes,
scene.
yes.
I guess he's been playing amateur for a little bit, or academy for a little bit, but he's been doing really great this year.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the shorter aspect, which is we're going to be going over some of the our impressions of the teams that we've seen so far. Now, just as a warning, I've looked at the stats, and everything posted. I've looked at all the stream games. So, there's going to be a little bit of a bias based off of the stream stuff right now until we can actually see all the teams here. So if you're on a team and we don't give you a lot of credit, just, give us, a couple of more weeks and then we can come back to this and then we'll be able to actually give everyone a fair shake of it because we'll have a lot more exposure to all the teams.
100%. We've only watched 2 teams. We've gotten a couple of clips, but I haven't had a chance to actually go through them and analyze them, and it is not very fair. So I'm just pretty much going off of the 4 games, 2 plat, 2 gold that we've seen.
Now, I want to go ahead and start with the Divinity League. So obviously we have TFF Aftershock, MSG Amethyst, Agni Kai. Great name, by the way. Just so you know, I caught the reference. Insomnia Rising, Clown Gaming, Limitless Excel, KSG Pearl, Bucky's Troposphere, most creative name so far. P247 Echo, Oasis Supernova, Big Damage Energy, P247 Foxtrot, Lower Class Gaming, and Dream Defeat. So,
I want to
Go
say
ahead.
it's absolutely apt that Lower Class Gaming and Dream to Feed are starting out 0-2. Thank you for your contribution and your memes. But you could also start winning some games. That'd be cool. I'm joking. I know some of the players. I love you guys.
all hate mail is directed towards Jango's personal.
That's
messages.
Jango Ultimus hashtag 811. Oh, what's my Discord thing? 8150, I think. I don't know.
All right,
But yeah,
so what was your impression with the teams that or with the teams in the standings right now?
It's really hard to go off of standings right now. I think the fact that we have 2 2-0 teams and 2 0-2 teams and everyone else is 1-1 speaks to kind of how I generally felt about watching the two games that I watched, and that is everyone is starting very under-practiced and very sloppy. I did not feel like coming away from any of the games where I was like, yes, they got a lead, they didn't make mistakes, they closed it out cleanly. There was never even that on a gold level for any of the games that I watched. And I think that's fine in the beginning of the split, but it doesn't. I'm not like walking away from the first 2 weeks and I'm like, wow, this is a title contender already. It's like, man, these teams got some good spots, they got some weak spots. Let's see how they evolve throughout the rest of the season. I think that's going to be the most fun thing for me to watch, is be like, okay, a bunch of these teams started out 3-2, 2-2, 2-3. How are they gonna go about fixing what went wrong, and will like how will the standings shake up? Because right now it could go any which way.
Yeah, I agree. Like I was looking here. It's always, you're always going to have what's called a bell curve. And for those of you who are not aware of this, when you have you have a couple of people. Let's say that let's go with a grading scale, A to F, A B C D F. Good old English education at its best. You have, your A's, and your A's will be at the end where you have the fewest, and then you'll have more between the B and C and D range, and it makes this bell curve on a graph. That's a sign of a very healthy, division of data. And so after the 2 weeks that we've seen here, we can say that that it follows that. I mean, we've got two teams at the bottom, we've got two teams at the top, and then everyone else is in the middle. So, I mean, that shows that it's a very healthy, competitive league as of right now. I mean, for lower class gaming, Dream Defeat could have been just a bad read on the meta. Someone could have had food poisoning and just had had bad couple of weeks. They could have fought the two best teams. Schedule change and everything. What's going to be funny is that when we come back to this in about 4 weeks, we're going to come back and see how much this has changed, and see see if it's still the same. I did see TFF Aftershocks games, and they looked really, really clean considering it's the beginning of the game or beginning of the season. And I also was looking here, thanks to shout out to Jack Gorilla, looking at the teams and statistics right now. You can actually go on the website and look at each division, and you can do like popular champions. And so one thing that I like, at least in our leagues right now, is that a lot of the stuff that you see is, at the top. For example, the top three champions that were played throughout the entire thing was like 10, 11, and 12. That's how many times that they were played. And that was Tristana, Nautilus, and Thresh.
Yep.
And so I really like seeing a diversity of champions. I mean, you can always, be a RE1 trick and try to get your way to Diamond. That way, if you really wanted to. But, I'm really excited to see what people pull out here and see what people ban. That's the greatest thing about a competitive league. Is that learning how, habits of people and going that way.
Yeah, week one was. I don't know if I would agree with your statement that TFF Aftershock were clean victories. I will say they were dominant, but that doesn't necessarily mean the same thing in my book. I think TFF Aftershock had this. It felt like they had a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and what I mean by that is it felt like a different person was leading the play every time, and every time somebody led the play, somebody was being left out. So just, I'm not thinking of anything specifically, but like the jungler was calling for a bot dive while the mid is a wave behind and he didn't come at the right time, or the support wants to engage on somebody in the river while the AD carry wasn't there on time, he was farming a wave, he wasn't on the same page. It just felt like every time somebody was trying to do something, there was always one person lagging behind. and they never had that cohesion. That being said, most of those plays worked anyways, so it was a very like stompy 2 games, and they definitely played well. But it wasn't like 100% cohesion, and that's kind of how I felt for most of the games, including week 2. Week 2 was weird. Did you catch week 2 or no?
I watched it, but remind me the team that they played. Or the
That
two
was
teams.
Agni Kai versus Bucky's Troposphere.
Yeah, I remember that game.
So I feel very, very odd about this set of games because I came away from this set of games feeling like Bucky's may have been the better team, even though they got 0-2'd, which is a really weird thing to say. But it was one of those things where their top laner had really good picks both games and just misexecuted literally level 1 both times and failed that. I think their bot lane is really, really solid, and game 2 they popped off the heck. And the jungle mid is kind of where I was unsure. I felt like the jungle mid out of Agni Kai was generally better than Bucky's. But it was kind of a push and pull, and Bucky's just didn't feel coordinated, maybe is the word. It just felt like small things fell apart for Bucky's, and Agni Kai had some really like questionable decision making, which they had a sub jungler. Their captain was out, so maybe that's part of the reason that happened, and they're just dominant players, and once they have their full starting lineup, they will look much more cohesive. But I felt like even though Agni Kai won 2-0, the problems that they showed in the series are a lot harder to fix than the problems that Bucky showed.
I'm trying to remember. Was that the game? Okay.
That the top lane picks define that game. That was the Lilia into Gwen, and that was the Warwick into Mordekaiser.
Well, the one thing that I can definitely say that shocked the living daylights out of me is, for those who didn't know, I made the preseason highlight video, and I got probably 15 different Darius plays, and Darius wasn't picked once. I was pretty salty over it. But in all seriousness, I've always adhered to, it doesn't matter how, if they 2-0'd. So, in my opinion, it doesn't matter how sloppy it was as long as you win. And going 2-0, especially the first week, the first 2 weeks give you such a big advantage later on, when you're talking about seeding, because one of the ways that we do seeding is, how many games have you played overall? So if you have two people who are at 15 games won, but someone did it in 30 games and someone did it in 33 games, the person who has the least amount of games is the people that, gets the higher seeding. So the 2-0 seeding here within, within 2 weeks, that's looking strong. I'm curious to see what they're going to do going forward, both teams, because the games that I've seen, Gwen has just been bonkers. And so, I'd almost permaban Gwen going, especially if I had a top laner that did that, who played that champion, because all I know is she cuts a couple of things, gets a massive amount of health back, and you die.
Basically, every Gwen game I have seen is the enemy knows that they're going to pick Gwen, and they have this counter pick prepared, and then they either fumble the counter pick or it doesn't work the way they thought it was, and then the Gwen looks super OP because it's Gwen. So I'm wondering if it will be something where teams continue with that and step up and actually play their counter picks the way they want to, or if, like you said, they're just going to end up banning the champion out because one misstep against it just turns it into an absolute death machine.
Well, with the beginning of the season, you have the liberty to try to counter pick it like that. What I would do is, like when I was playing as a in competitive, we always got scrims against other teams. Okay, and so it'd be almost like scrims and like professional. Like, hey, will you guys pick this champion for a game or two, and then we'll pick this champion for a game or two. To try to get try to play against it. Preferably that's the best kind of practice that you're going to get. And scrims are really good. It's also good to have. We talk about it all the time, but subs. Like our league, our league in general does not do subs very well. So in the sense that, if you have subs, which I suggest that you do so you don't ever have to worry about forfeiting, I would I'd pick subs that aren't necessarily worse than your starters, but maybe play a different style. So for example, if you were wanting to play through top one thing because they have a worse mid laner, but your top laner only plays tanks, that's a good way to switch in and take value of your rosters. I'd like to see a lot more of that going on. And then maybe, because either you're with Gwen, you're either going to confront it or you're going to ban it. Or you're at least in RELO, you're not confront it. You're going to try not to be involved with her in laning, play a tank, or you're just going to ban it. And I want to see more creativity and stuff because there was a team. Lord help me for mentioning this team. For the Boomers, Baka Oni-chan, they had a lot of people that they would play and that they would switch around and to try to get an advantage, and they did it fairly well. And that's the type of stuff to give advantage I would like to see played. Like, if you want someone to play the Gwen and you have someone who can play against it, that's the perfect time to put them in that week.
I think we can have a very interesting conversation on this topic maybe another day, as we're kind of running a bit long today. I don't want to put another big tangent in here, but we'll put a pin in this conversation because I think you can have a very interesting conversation around this, whether it be at pro level or at our amateur level, both of them. So maybe we'll bring this topic back up later. Anything else you want to talk about for Divinity specifically?
Nope, I'm good with Divinity. Let's move on to Conqueror then. So
Conqueror is a bit different.
It actually is. So
Yep.
I'm interested in seeing what happens here. We've got like a 4-way tie, I believe, for first place.
Currently, yes. 4-4-0 teams.
Yeah, that's with
Game
Cross
record.
Point Origin, Hard Hat Zone, Meme City Metro, Radiant Storm Rampage, and Bucky's Atmosphere. I assume that's probably part of the same organization as Bucky's Troposphere. Don't quote me on that.
No, you're correct. I believe Array captains both of those teams, so they are the same.
And so, and then follow. We have a couple of 1-on-1 teams, which is AOE Team 1, Oasis Lotus, and then the O2 teams, which is Monkey Hand Signs, Bywee, DC Phoenix, Insomnia Gaming, and T1 Fan Club.
Yeah, so pretty opposite of that bell curve that we were talking about here, and again, it's all very, very schedule reliant. And I think the craziest part isn't that it's like we have 5 2-0 teams and 5 0-2 teams when you look at their overall records. I think it's even more crazy that we have 4 4-0 teams and 4 0-4 teams that just haven't won a game or haven't lost a game yet, which is really putting the stretch on kind of the top and bottom. We'll have to see how how schedule strength plays into that, and if this is kind of like a hoax or if this is actually like we have a pretty top heavy and bottom heavy league and the middle's kind of wishy-washy, or if everything will just kind of go into a standard array here towards the end of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about this as well. I mean, you can obviously tell who played who in the top and the bottom. So, but I'm more curious about if that's necessarily, obviously the top 4 teams are probably going to be some of the, higher tier teams by the end of the season. But I'm wanting to know is if that's a lack of play, because there's so many different things that could cause this besides, obviously they destroyed the Nexus. I mean, was it just a bad meta read? Was it, did they just have better skilled players? I mean, did people on their team tilt off the face of the earth? And
with
go ahead.
I was going to say, with it happening to so many teams, it's probably a little bit of everything, right? Like maybe one team just kind of wanted to try something and it has not been working. One team's just bad practice. One team, maybe their AD carry can only play 1 day a week until his job switches up like 3 weeks into the thing. Like there could be so many things that could be happening to all these different teams right now. And it's just a lot of waiting to see where the dust settles. But I will say there was a lot more interesting things that I could look at from just how the different teams played from the 2 stream matches, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I've always been the person that you learn more about a team that is at 500 than you do at a team that's undefeated. And what I mean by that is that if someone, obviously if Crosspoint Origin goes undefeated all the way to playoffs, I mean they're obviously the best team, but to get to know a team, to learn how to exploit a team, I like seeing teams that have drop games so that you can learn how to exploit them. Because I used to be a coach for a team. We won the championship, so hashtag plug, hashtag have to get that in there. I would do the scouting, and so these teams that, like, when I look at like the 2-0 teams and like the undefeated teams, it's a lot harder to plan around them. You can always do picks and bans and stuff like that, but trying to do what's your win condition? How are you gonna do that? If is Crosspoint just a fully like, for example, and I'm not saying that this is true, but is Crosspoint just a complete snowball team? Can you not feed for the first 15 minutes and then and then all of a sudden it flips and your win condition starts happening?
Yeah, I can definitely see what you're saying. I think it's really interesting currently, and I'm not sure if this will continue with how the standings are, but currently if you look at the teams, there's quite a bit of difference in just the rankings, like the solo queue rankings of the teams, just looking down the list of them. And it's something where it doesn't necessarily like correlate. Like the teams with the most golds are all at the bottom, and the teams with all of the plat 1 and plat 2s are all at the top, and that's not the correlation currently. And I think that's A, fantastic, and B, I hope it kind of opens the Plat League up a bit, because I think Plat League can be very, very expensive, and a lot of high gold players can find success in it if they find the right teams. And Crosspoint, the team you were talking about, I think has a little bit of that, where they are a very well-known organization. If you've watched Plat Leagues anywhere else, you've more than likely seen them. And these guys value more playing together and playing as a coordinated unit than they do just your absolute raw skill at the game. And I cannot wait until we get them onto broadcast, because they are such a fun team to cast and watch. I've done a couple casts of them in a different split, not the same players, actually some of the same players, not all though. So I'm very much looking forward to them, and I think they're kind of a front runner. Now I say that pretty biased because I do know them and I don't know a lot of the other people, but Crosspoint is definitely a team to watch.
Well, I'm definitely excited to see what happens, especially in the next couple of weeks. I want to see. We're going to have a full, just over half the season or split going by the time that we come back and we can readdress this. But unfortunately, we've kind of ran long. So unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap this up, guys and gals. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we go. Before I do that, is there anything else that you'd like to add, Jango?
You want to give me 2 minutes to just rant on the stream games for the Conqueror League because I didn't get to do that?
Go ahead, burn it up.
All right, I will be very quick. Week 1 was Meme City Metro versus Insomnia Gaming. We only got one game because of a Game 1 FF due to time XD. That just miscommunication sucks. But we only got one game. Meme City were just clearly the more coordinated team. There were good spots for both of them. I think they should both be playoffs. Insomnia is probably going to be if I had to guess, closer to like borderline playoff teams. I think Meme City Metro we should definitely see there. Swoon Baboon, Swoon Typhoon, mid jungle duo to be feared. Game 2 or week 2 was Radiant Storm Rampage versus Oasis Lotus. Radiant Storm really, really impressed me. I think Oasis impressed me, but in a different way. Oasis were put in really rough spots both games. It was a rough 0-2, but they were extraordinarily vigilant. They kept looking for plays. They kept looking for smart plays, which is really nice to see. But Radiant Storm really kind of just flexed individually on them, all outside of top lane. I think the top laner for Oasis Lotus kind of had the number in that series, but everywhere else on the map was all Radiant Storm. Very dominant, very involving each other in all of the plays that they were making. Like how I said, the one team in Divinity was having players lack around and they were all like coming from different angles. Radiant Storm felt like they were a complete unit, and that is really scary this early on. I think that was close enough to 2 minutes.
I didn't time you. I gave you, if it was a little extra, I gave you a little, so be it. All right, so guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Just a couple of housekeeping things. We are always looking for more clips of content. Please submit them on the website there. There's an article on the website to explain how to do it, or there's also a tutorial from the previous podcast that's on the YouTube channel. And, if you're ever having trouble getting to the YouTube channel, you can always go to www.titan www.titan, I can't speak right now, titan-esports with an s.org. And then it'll show right there the Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, and all the other social media stuff that we have. So if there's and that the next podcast we're going to be following, I lied, we're going to be doing the TES the following 2 weeks, so that'll give us a full 4 weeks with a good sample data to go from there, and then we'll start. And then by the time that we do the next one, which would be at week 8, we'll start talking about the going into playoffs. So if there's anything else that you would like to add, Jango, before we sign off?
Feedback channel in the Discord. Use it. If there's things you want us to hear talk about, if there's things you think we should do better or could do differently, like let us know. Always down to feedback. Constructive criticism, always nice. For casting, for podcasts, everything. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, because it is very much a product that we enjoy making, and we want to make it enjoyable for you guys to watch. So please let us know what we're doing good, what you think we could do better. My DMs, the feedback channel are both of fantastic places.
All right, well, if that's it, then we'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, guys and gals, have a good day.
Bye-bye.